Hello, I'm Darren Magee, and the topic for today's video continues on from last time, looking at neglect in narcissistic relationships. Previously, I looked at the difference between abuse and neglect and gave some common signs of neglect taking place in an adult relationship. You might want to watch that video if you haven't already. In this video, I'm going to be looking at some of the long-term effects of being emotionally neglected in an adult relationship. So if you find this video interesting, please consider subscribing to my channel. Now, abuse can be harmful and destructive, but so can neglect, but in different ways. Whenever someone is being abused, they can feel targeted, they can feel hated. But both the spoken and unspoken messages of neglect can leave someone feeling as if they're irrelevant, they're not good enough, as if they don't matter, they're of no value. And some of the long-term effects of neglect in an adult relationship would be, firstly, it creates feelings of disconnection and emotional distance in the relationship. When someone feels ignored or unvalued, they might respond by withdrawing or becoming distant themselves. Emotional neglect can feel like a slow working poison, working its way through someone's system. No matter how many times they might reach out to their partner, no matter how many times they might ask for help or support, they might talk about how they're struggling, they're suffering from a lack of connection, a lack of intimacy. It seems to fall on deaf ears. They may be met with indifference. They are disregarded. Sometimes they might even hear things like, "But I made you coffee earlier." This can lead to a further breakdown in communication and a lack of trust, a lack of intimacy. And this undermines the very foundations of a healthy relationship. In some cases, it can even affect someone's ability to form healthy relationships outside of the neglectful one, which can lead to an increased isolation and loneliness. So, what we see there is something like a negative feedback loop. It feeds off itself. Secondly, neglect can impact someone's sense of self worth. When someone receives inadequate emotional support over a long period of time, especially from someone who's supposed to be close to them, it can have a huge impact on their overall mental health and their well being. And if that person has learned not to ask for anything, not to offer anything, not to expect anything, those feelings of low self worth can be exacerbated when they see their narcissistic partner being caring and attentive to other people. And a lack of emotional support and validation, especially during difficult times, can lead to feelings of inadequacy, self doubt, a belief that they are unworthy of love and care. Thirdly, long term neglect can result in difficulties in establishing and maintaining healthy boundaries. People may struggle to assert their needs or communicate their limits. They can feel defeated easily at the first question whenever they try to express themselves. Even if it's a genuine question, they feel as if they're not being listened to yet again. There can also be a discomfort with conflict and confrontation. Over a period of time, they have learned to avoid expressing their needs or their concerns due to a lack of validation, emotional support, or even negative consequences whenever they tried. They have learned that pleading doesn't work, nor does being nice, rational, sarcastic, or even angry. So they don't necessarily back down or avoid conflict out of fear. They do it because they've been ground down. So consequently, conflicts go unresolved, leading to further resentment and disconnection. Next, there can be an increase in both anxiety and depression, feeling both helpless and hopeless. They can experience difficulties in being able to articulate their emotions, as well as maybe sometimes not feeling safe enough to communicate them. Among other things, this can bring up an internalized anger and frustration. What do I have to do to be heard, just to be noticed? Now, there is a school of thought, and it's one which I would agree with in many cases, that suggests whenever people feel things like anger and frustration, but there's nothing they can do about it, it just gets internalized, it gets turned inwards. It tends to get very dulled, and when it comes out, it has to come out somehow, it tends to come out as depression. Number five, in abusive relationships, people can become more guarded for fear of the reaction of their abuser, so they don't share any information, whether it's good or bad. They tend to hide their emotions. In a neglectful relationship, they don't share because the partner acts with indifference. Maybe outside the relationship, they might share good news with other people, but they may be a bit tentative, they may be cynical, or even apologize, play it down. And now to others, it might sound like they're embarrassed or maybe just negative about their own good news. Number 6, there can be emotional dysregulation. Because they were not able to express their feelings, their needs, their thoughts openly in the relationship, this can lead to difficulties in being able to identify, express, or manage their emotions effectively. Now, as a result, they may experience heightened emotional reactivity, impulsivity, or even emotional numbness and withdrawal. With their partner, to get any kind of acknowledgement or reaction, they might have become antagonistic, sarcastic, even passive aggressive. There may even have been outbursts of anger, anything at all to be heard, but only to be accused of being abusive. The narcissistic person might withdraw what little attention there is even further, give them the silent treatment. Number 7, the absence of consistent emotional support can result in difficulties for someone recognizing and meeting their own emotional and self care needs. Some might even struggle with self care. They stop doing the things they once enjoyed, the things they benefited from, stop looking after themselves. Neglect can also lead to maladaptive coping mechanisms. In some cases, some people might turn to alcohol, substance abuse, self harm, even disordered eating. Next, self esteem and self confidence can plummet, and this can leak into other areas of their lives, such as relationships, their jobs, interests. They lose energy, they lose their ambitions, they feel demotivated. The closest person to them, their partner, has no interest in helping them whenever they're failing or whenever they're struggling, or celebrating with them whenever they succeed. And because they've become accustomed to being refused, some might struggle to ask for any kind of help or support anywhere. They believe they have to deal with everything alone. Number 9, just like with an abusive relationship, after coming out of a neglectful relationship, it's not uncommon for people to struggle with trust and intimacy in other relationships. People can face challenges trying to form new emotional connections, new friendships. They can struggle to fully open up or to ask for any kind of help or support or advice, and this can inhibit the development of emotional closeness. And lastly, neglect can affect physical health. Chronic stress can put a strain on the body and the immune system, causing physical problems such as insomnia, headaches, and chronic fatigue. These physical consequences can also have a knock on effect on their mental health, exacerbating symptoms that they already have of anxiety and depression. So, to summarize, the long term effects of emotional neglect in adult relationships can significantly impact communication patterns, emotional well being, psychological functioning, and interpersonal skills. It can lead to feelings of disconnection and emotional distance, low confidence, low self esteem, and physical health problems. And some research has indicated that individuals who've experienced emotional neglect may be at an increased risk of developing depression and anxiety disorders and complex trauma related symptoms. Regardless of the form the neglect takes, it can have serious consequences. So, acknowledging the significant impact of emotional neglect is important. Speaking with a mental health professional like a counselor or a psychotherapist can help with fostering self compassion, self care, self acceptance, and help people move forward building healthy, mutually supportive relationships with others. So, they are just some of the common effects emotional neglect can have in an adult relationship. As always, if there's anything I've missed, please feel free to use the comment box below. But if you've experienced emotional neglect in a relationship and found anything helpful in your recovery, if you feel comfortable enough, please share it in the comment box below. Someone reading it might benefit from your wisdom and your experience. And if you find this video interesting, if you find it helpful, please consider subscribing to my channel. And until next time, thanks for watching.